Story 1. The first thing I noticed was the sound. Not footsteps, not voices. A metallic banging deep inside the storage facility, like someone repeatedly slamming a roll-up unit door shut and yanking it open again. Slow at first, then faster. I remember staring at the security monitor while the noise echoed through the hallways, because every single camera feed was empty. Unit 42's hallway was clear. Unit 43 was clear. Nothing moving anywhere, but the banging kept happening. And then the office phone rang beside me, so suddenly I almost knocked my coffee over. I picked it up expecting dispatch or maybe a customer locked out late, but all I heard was breathing, really shallow breathing. Then a man whispered, "He's still inside." The line went dead immediately after that. I just sat there for maybe 10 seconds trying to convince myself it was some prank call, because that made more sense than anything else at that moment. But then the banging stopped completely. Just silence. Total silence. And somehow that felt worse. I worked nights at a self-storage facility outside Flagstaff, Arizona. About 20 minutes off the interstate near a stretch of empty desert nobody drove through unless they had to. The place was called Canyon Ridge Storage, one of those huge compounds with endless rows of metal units and bright floodlights that somehow still never made the property feel safe after dark. I'd only been there 3 weeks. Graveyard shift. 6 at night until 6 in the morning. Mostly boring work, logging gate activity, checking cameras, helping the occasional customer who forgot their access code. My boss, Ray, told me the night shift was quiet money, easy paycheck. He said 90% of the job was staying awake. The other 10% was making sure nobody broke into units or slept on the property. What he didn't mention was how strange the place became after midnight. The facility had over 400 units spread across long corridors separated by chain-link fencing and motion lights. During the day it looked normal enough. At night, though, it felt endless. The rows all looked identical. The lights buzzed constantly. Wind pushed dust through the lanes between units so it almost looked like movement in your peripheral vision. Around 1 in the morning, the temperature always dropped hard, and the metal doors would creak as they cooled. At first I thought that was the noise people complained about online in reviews. People kept mentioning hearing banging late at night from empty hallways, but after my 4th shift, I stopped thinking it was the building settling. That night started normal. Too normal, honestly. I was eating gas station nachos at the front desk while half watching security feeds. Some old crime documentary played quietly on my phone. Around 12:43 a.m., a white pickup truck entered through the front gate. Nothing unusual there except the driver never exited the vehicle. The truck just rolled slowly through the property for almost 15 minutes. No unit stop, no parking, just circling. I finally radioed him through the speaker system asking if he needed assistance. No response. The truck eventually disappeared into the back rows near Section D, where camera coverage could spotty. A few minutes later, all the cameras in Section D cut to static at the same exact time. Not black, static. Thick gray fuzz like an old dead TV channel. I remember sitting up immediately, because the system wasn't supposed to do that. Cameras usually froze if there was an issue. They didn't turn to static. I tried resetting them remotely, but nothing changed. Then my radio crackled. At first it sounded like interference. Then I heard someone talking quietly underneath the static. Open. Still open. I grabbed the radio and asked who was transmitting, but there was no answer, just that same hissing sound. Then one clear sentence, "Don't let him back inside." After that, silence again. I wish I could say I handled it calmly, but honestly, I was already freaked out. The facility felt wrong all of a sudden, too quiet. Even the highway noise seemed gone. I checked the front gate logs to see if the white truck had exited, but according to the system, it never entered at all. No plate scan, no timestamp, nothing. That's when I noticed something worse. One of the hallway cameras near Unit 88 had come back online by itself, and there was someone standing there. Not moving, just standing directly in front of Unit 88 facing the camera. I couldn't make out details because the resolution sucked at night, but it looked like a man wearing a hooded jacket. I zoomed in. The image glitched. For maybe half a second, the The figure looked way closer than before, like it had jumped forward between frames. Then the feed froze entirely. I told myself it was probably a customer messing around, maybe someone living in a unit illegally. That happens sometimes. Still, I grabbed my flashlight before heading outside, the second I stepped out of the wind. Office. I got this weird feeling, like somebody had been standing near the door right before I opened it. The air smelled strange too. Not dust, not rain, something chemical, like wet paint or cleaning fluid. I started walking towards Section D with my flashlight sweeping the lanes. The place looked empty. Every metal door shut tight, every light buzzing overhead. But I kept hearing sounds that didn't line up with where I was. A cough somewhere behind me. Then footsteps ahead. Then silence again. I radioed dispatch just to hear another human voice, but all I got back was static. Halfway down the row, I found the white pickup truck parked beside Unit 88. Engine off, driver door open, nobody inside. I called out a few times, no answer. There was a fast food bag on the passenger seat still worn, and the radio inside the truck was making this horrible clicking sound, like someone keying a microphone repeatedly without speaking. Then I noticed the unit door. Unit 88 was slightly open, maybe 3 inches. I remember just staring at that gap. Something about it made my stomach drop instantly. The darkness inside looked deeper somehow. Like the light from my flashlight wasn't reaching properly. I should have called the cops right then. Instead, I walked closer. I don't know why. Maybe because I didn't want to look weak this early into the job. Maybe because I thought there was a medical emergency. I grabbed the handle and lifted the door slowly. The metal rattled loud enough to echo through the entire corridor. Inside was furniture, mattresses, plastic bins, nothing weird at first glance. Then my flashlight landed on the back wall. There were photos taped everywhere, dozens of them. Grainy pictures of the storage facility taken at night, pictures of customers unloading boxes, pictures of random hallways. Some looked years old, some recent. And right in the center, there was a photo of me sitting at the front desk from earlier that night. I physically stumbled backward when I saw it. I hadn't even worked there a month. There was no way somebody could have had that photo before tonight. Then I heard movement behind me inside the unit. Not loud, just a small shift, like somebody adjusting their weight quietly in the dark. I swung the flashlight toward the back corner. Nothing there. But this time, it was different. I could hear breathing. Close. Way too close. I backed out immediately and slammed the unit shut. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped the lock. Then the lights above Section D flickered once. Twice. Gone. The entire row went pitch black. I froze. You don't realize how dark storage facilities get until all the floodlights die at once. My flashlight suddenly felt tiny. The silence was unbelievable. Then came footsteps. Slow footsteps crunching gravel somewhere nearby. I shouted, asking who was there. No response. The footsteps kept circling instead of approaching directly. That scared me more than if somebody had run at me. It felt deliberate, controlled. I started walking backward toward the office while keeping the flashlight moving constantly. And then I noticed another light farther down the row. A flashlight beam. Someone else was there. The beam disappeared behind units every few seconds, like the person carrying it was watching me while staying hidden. I remember yelling that I was calling the police. The light stopped moving immediately. Dead still. Then my radio crackled again. "Don't go back to the office," sang voices before, whispering. "Calm." I spun around so fast I nearly fell because the voice sounded right beside my ear. But nobody was there. That's when I realized something terrifying. The flashlight beam down the row wasn't moving anymore because whoever had it was now behind me. I heard gravel shift maybe 10 feet back. I turned slowly with my flashlight raised. Nothing. Empty lane. But the smell, that chemical smell, was suddenly strong again. Then one of the storage doors nearby slammed shut violently, hard enough to rattle every unit around it. Another slammed after it. Then another. Bang, bang, bang. Like someone sprinting through the rows, closing doors one by one toward me. I ran. I don't even remember deciding to run. I just did. I sprinted through the corridors while the metal slamming echoed behind me, getting closer each time. My flashlight beam bounced everywhere. Units blurred past. At one point, I looked behind me and thought I saw someone crossing between rows, keeping pace with me, but I can't swear to that. I reached the office building and nearly ripped the handle off trying to get inside. The door was locked. I had left it unlocked. I know I had. My keys were suddenly slipping in my hand because of sweat. Behind me, somewhere in the darkness, another unit door slammed shut. Closer now. Finally, the lock clicked open, and I threw myself inside, locking the door immediately behind me. The office felt wrong, too, quiet in a different way. The monitors were black. Every camera offline. Even the desk lamp had shut off. Only the emergency exit light in the hallway glowed red. Then the office printer started printing by itself. One page, then another, then another. I walked over slowly and grabbed the papers while my heart hammered so hard I could barely think. They were screenshots from security footage, grainy black and white images from different nights, different timestamps. In every photo, employees sat alone at the desk, except they weren't alone. Someone stood behind them in every single image, just barely visible, watching. The last photo was timestamped only 2 minutes earlier. It showed me sitting at the desk eating my nachos before all this started, and standing directly behind my chair was a man wearing a hooded jacket staring into the camera. The worst part, I finally saw his face clearly. It was the same guy from the employee ID photo hanging on the wall beside the office calendar. Martin Vega, the night worker before me, the one Ray told me quit Simile 3 months earlier. Except according to the local news article I found later that night, Martin never quit. He disappeared during his shift. They never found him. The police arrived around sunrise after I finally got a hold of somebody. They searched the property for hours. No white pickup truck. No photos in Unit 88. No signs anybody else had been there at all. Ray acted weirdly calm about the whole thing too. Almost annoyed. He told the officer stress and isolation affected some night workers more than people realized. That line stuck with me because it sounded rehearsed, like he'd said it before. I quit the next morning, didn't even finish paperwork. A week later, I got a package in the mail with no return address. Inside was a single security photo from Canyon Ridge Storage, timestamped 3 nights after I quit. The front desk chair was empty, but standing beside it was someone wearing my jacket, looking directly into the camera, and behind him, barely visible in the hallway, was another figure watching him from the dark. Story 2. The motel phone rang right as I noticed the man standing across the parking lot wasn't there anymore. I remember freezing with the curtain still pinched between my fingers, staring at the exact spot under the flickering ice machine light where he'd been maybe half a second earlier. Then the room phone started buzzing beside the bed. Loud, sudden. Wrong. I picked it up because my brain hadn't caught up yet. And the second I said hello, a calm voice asked, "Why are you looking out the window?" I honestly think something in my body stopped working for a second after that. I let go of the curtain immediately and backed away from the glass so fast I hit the dresser behind me. The voice didn't sound distorted or creepy in some obvious movie way either. That's what got me. It sounded normal, tired. Like a guy working late somewhere. "Sir?" I asked. "Who is this?" There was a pause. I could hear faint static, like a bad landline connection. Then he said, quieter this time, "You weren't supposed to see me." The line went dead. I just stood there holding the receiver against my ear while the empty dial tone hummed. I kept telling myself it had to be someone messing around. Maybe the motel clerk saw me through security cameras or something. Maybe the guy outside had crouched behind a car before I noticed. But even then, something about the timing didn't feel possible. I was driving through western Nebraska that night, after a work trip ran longer than expected. I do HVAC maintenance for commercial buildings, mostly overnight jobs, and I'd been on the road since before sunrise. Around midnight, my truck started overheating outside this tiny town off Highway 30, and I had no choice except stop for the night. The motel was called the Lantern View Inn, even though there wasn't another building around for miles except a closed gas station and a diner with its chairs flipped upside down inside. The motel itself looked half open. Only maybe 6 cars in the lot. One neon vacancy sign flickering so hard it barely stayed lit. I almost left after checking in because the lobby smelled weirdly damp, like wet carpet and cigarettes buried under bleach, but I was exhausted. The clerk barely looked at me when I signed the paperwork. Older guy, gray mustache, watching a tiny TV behind the counter with the volume muted. I remember him pausing for a second after seeing my ID, just a second. Then he slid the room key over and said, "If the phone rings after 2, don't answer it." He said it casually too, like he was reminding me about breakfast hours. I laughed a little because I thought he was joking, but he didn't laugh back. "People call the wrong rooms here sometimes," he added. "Just ignore it." At the time, I didn't think much about it. Motels get weird people, especially near highways. My room was on the 2nd floor facing the parking lot. Room 18. The door stuck when I opened it, like it swelled in humid weather, and the inside looked older than the pictures online. Brown carpet, one lamp near the bed, a TV bolted crookedly to the wall. The bathroom light buzzed constantly. I remember checking the locks twice out of habit, then setting my duffel near the bed while the AC rattled like it was about to die. I ate vending machine crackers for dinner and tried watching cable, but every channel kept glitching for some reason. Random static bursts, audio cutting out. Around 1:30 in the morning, I noticed headlights sweep across my curtains. I looked outside expecting another guest, but the parking lot was empty except for an old blue sedan near the ice machine. That's when I saw the man standing there. He wasn't doing anything strange at first. Just standing beside the sedan with his hands in his pockets, facing my room. Completely still. I remember checking the time because something about him bothered me instantly. 1:37 a.m. I watched for maybe 15 seconds before convincing myself he was probably smoking or waiting for someone. Then, his head tilted slightly upward toward my window. Not enough to fully see his face, just enough that I knew he knew I was there. That's when the motel phone rang for the first time. After the call ended, I stayed away from the window for a while. My heart was pounding hard enough I could actually hear it in my ears. I tried calling the front desk, but the line just rang and rang. No answer. Then I noticed something else. The AC unit had stopped rattling. The entire room was suddenly quiet. Too quiet. I don't know why that scared me more than the phone call did, but it did. I walked over and checked the people. Empty hallway. No movement. But when I looked down, I saw muddy footprints outside my door. Fresh ones. Like someone had stood there recently. That's when the phone rang again. I almost didn't answer it this time. It rang 6 times before I finally picked it up. Same static. Same calm voice. "You should lock the bathroom door," he said. I felt cold instantly. Not scared exactly. More like my brain was trying to reject what I'd heard. "Who is this?" I snapped. "What do you want?" The voice ignored the question. "He checks there first." Then the line clicked dead again. I stared at the bathroom door across the room. Half open. Dark inside except for the weak yellow light over the sink. I actually laughed nervously because it felt ridiculous, like I was letting some prank get to me. But I still walked over and shut the bathroom door anyway. Then I locked it. And right after I did, I heard footsteps above me. Slow, heavy, crossing the ceiling from one side of the room to the other. Except there wasn't supposed to be a 3rd floor. I looked outside again after maybe 10 minutes. The blue sedan was gone. So was the man. But another vehicle had appeared near the highway entrance. Black SUV, engine running, no headlights, just sitting there. I started packing my stuff after that. I didn't care how tired I was anymore. I figured I'd sleep at a gas station if I had to. But when I grabbed my keys, somebody knocked on my door. 3 slow knocks, not loud. just deliberate. I froze immediately. Then came the voice. Not from the phone this time, right outside the room. "Front desk," the man said. "Need to check your smoke detector." I didn't answer. Something about the wording sounded rehearsed. Wrong. And then I noticed the shadow under the door. Whoever was standing there wasn't moving at all. Most people shift their weight without realizing it. This person stood perfectly still. Another knock. "Sir." I backed away quietly and grabbed the metal lamp from the nightstand without even thinking about it. My phone showed 2:11 a.m. No service. One bar flickering in and out. The knocking stopped after maybe 30 seconds. Then came footsteps walking away down the hallway, slow, dragging slightly. I waited another minute before checking the people again. Empty. But farther down the walkway, near the stairwell, I saw the same man from the parking lot, standing motionless beneath the exit sign. I couldn't fully see his face because the light kept flickering, but I could tell he was staring directly at my door. And my phone buzzed. A no number. I answered before thinking. Static crackled through the speaker. Then the same voice whispered, "That isn't the man from outside." I swear my stomach dropped so hard it hurt. "What?" I said. "Who the hell are you?" "Look at the bathroom," the caller said. "Right now." The line disconnected again. I turned slowly toward the bathroom door. The light underneath it was on now. I knew for a fact I'd turned it off earlier. Then something moved behind the frosted glass shower curtain, just slightly, like somebody adjusting their footing. I stumbled backwards so fast I almost fell over the bed. Every instinct in my body screamed to run, but the only exit was the front door, past the hallway, past the man outside. I grabbed my keys and bolted anyway. The second I yanked the motel door open, cold air hit me hard enough to steal my breath. The hallway was empty. No man near the stairs. No footsteps. Nothing. I ran for my truck while fumbling my keys so badly I dropped them twice. Halfway there, I looked back up toward my room. The curtain had moved. Somebody was standing inside now, watching me from behind the glass. Just a silhouette, tall, motionless. My truck started after a few horrible seconds of grinding, and I peeled out of the parking lot so fast my tires squealed on the wet pavement. I kept expecting headlights behind me, but the road stayed empty, completely empty. About 20 miles later, I stopped at a truck stop to calm down. I even convinced myself maybe someone had broken into the room while I was distracted by the calls. Maybe the clerk was involved somehow. Maybe the voice on the phone was actually trying to help me. I don't know. But around sunrise, curiosity got the better of me. I searched the motel online. The first thing that came up was a local news article from 8 years earlier. A man had disappeared there during a cross-country road trip. Last person confirmed to see him alive was the night clerk working the front desk. There was one attached photo from security footage. Grainy, black and white. Taken in the motel parking lot around 2 a.m. and standing near the ice machine in the background was me. Same height, same jacket, same posture. The timestamp on the image was dated 6 years before I'd ever been there. Story 3. The delivery app glitched right when I pulled into the driveway, and for a second the customer name changed to "Don't Knock." I remember staring at my phone thinking maybe the app was lagging because the text flickered back to a normal name almost immediately after that. Same order, same address, 2 burgers, fries, bottled water. But I know what I saw. And honestly, if I'd listened to it, I probably wouldn't still think about that night every time my phone buzzes after midnight. I was doing food delivery outside Columbus, Ohio back in late October. Mostly graveyard shifts because the money was better. Less traffic, bigger tips, drunk college orders, that kind of thing. Around 1:40 in the morning, I got a delivery request for a neighborhood I'd never been to before. The payout was unusually high too. $38 for less than 15 minutes away. That should have been the first sign something was off. The restaurant was closing when I picked up the food. One exhausted cashier handed me the bag and said, "You heading to Ash Grove Lane?" I said yeah, and she gave me this weird look before glancing toward the kitchen. "Thought nobody lived out there anymore," she muttered. Then she shook her head like she regretted saying it. I laughed awkwardly and asked what she meant, but she just said, "Probably wrong address or something." The whole drive there felt strange from the start. My GPS kept recalculating every couple minutes, even though I was following the route exactly. 1 second it would say 12 minutes away, then suddenly 23, then back to 9. The roads got emptier too, fewer streetlights, no stores open. Just long stretches of trees and dark houses sitting far apart from each other. Around 1:57 a.m., my app notification sound went off again. New customer message: leave food at front door. Do not look through windows. I actually remember smiling a little, because customers send weird instructions all the time. But maybe 30 seconds later, another message appeared. Seriously, don't. That one felt different. No punctuation, sent separately, like someone nervous. I almost canceled the order right there, but the payout was too good, and I was already close. Ashgrove Lane turned out to be this narrow road, running behind an old wooded area. The second I turned onto it, my headlights caught something reflective hanging from trees on both sides. At first, I thought they were decorations, but when I got closer, I realized they were strips of silver tape tied around branches. Dozens of them, fluttering in the wind. My GPS voice suddenly cut out halfway through a sentence. Just static, then silence. The address was near the end of the road, house 188, except when I reached the mailbox, the numbers read 189. I checked the app again. Still 188. There wasn't another house nearby either. Just one large dark property sitting back behind overgrown hedges. No porch light, no cars. Every window black. Honestly, it looked abandoned. I almost drove away, and my phone vibrated again. "I can see you parked outside." I looked up immediately toward the house. Nothing moved, no lights turned on. My chest tightened a little after reading that. I typed back, "I think I have wrong address." 3 dots appeared instantly like the customer was typing, then stopped, then started again. Finally, the message came through, "No, you're here." I don't know why I got out of the car after that. Maybe because part of me still thought it was just some socially awkward person watching through a peephole or camera. I grabbed the food and started walking toward the front porch. The grass was too tall, like nobody had cut it in months. It didn't seem like it was too late, but it turned out to be a cavement. The first of them was one. And the house smelled weirdly damp even from outside, like wet wood after heavy rain. Halfway up the walkway, I noticed the front door wasn't fully closed, just slightly cracked open. That stopped me immediately. I called out, "Delivery!" No answer. Then I heard movement inside. Fast footsteps crossing hardwood floors somewhere deeper in the house. Not toward the door though, away from it. I set the food near the entrance and backed up a little. "I'm just gonna leave it here," I said louder. Still nothing. But then the front door slowly opened another inch by itself. I know people say that all the time in horror stories, but it probably just shifted because the floor inside slanted or something. At least that's what I told myself then. What bothered me more was what I saw through the gap. There was almost no furniture inside. Just a hallway with faded wallpaper and one lamp glowing in another room farther back. That was it. No TV sounds, no voices, no sign anybody lived there. Then my phone rang. Not the app, an actual phone call. Unknown number. I answered because I figured it was the customer. But the second I picked up, I heard whispering. Multiple voices, too quiet to understand. I thought maybe the connection was bad, until one voice became clear for a second and said, "Is he alone?" Then the line disconnected. I stood there frozen with the phone still against my ear. That's when I noticed something near the doorway floor. Scratches, deep ones, like claw marks almost, except straighter. Long grooves dragged across the wood from inside the house toward the porch. I took another step back immediately, and then the lamp inside shut off. Complete darkness. I turned around fast, ready to leave, but my car headlights suddenly flickered twice and went out. The engine was still running. I could hear it, but the lights were dead. My phone buzzed again. New customer message. You forgot the drinks. I looked down. The bottled water was still in my hand. I hadn't even realized it. My hands were shaking at that point. I set the drinks beside the food without going near the door again. Then something moved upstairs. Heavy footsteps. Slow. Crossing directly above me. I looked up instinctively toward the second-floor windows. And for half a second I saw someone standing there behind the curtains. Just a silhouette. Completely still. Then the curtain closed. I got back to my car fast after that. Locked the doors immediately. But before I could shift into reverse, another notification appeared. One more thing. Then, there's someone behind your car. My stomach dropped instantly. I checked the rearview mirror so fast I nearly hurt my neck. Nothing there. Just darkness and the empty road behind me. But while I was staring backward, somebody knocked once on my driver's side window. I swear I almost screamed. There was a man standing beside the car. Thin, maybe late 50s, gray hoodie, rain spots covering the sleeves even though it hadn't rained that night. I hadn't heard him walk up at all. He just stood there looking exhausted. You shouldn't stop here after 1, he said quietly. I cracked the window maybe an inch. Do you live here? I asked. The guy looked toward the house instead of answering. That house is empty, he said. Been empty for years. I felt my chest tighten again. Then who ordered food? The man didn't answer right away. He kept staring at the second-floor window. Then he said something I still think about constantly. Depends which family member got your number. Before I could ask what that meant, headlights appeared farther down the road behind me. Another vehicle turning onto Ash Grove Lane. Large SUV, black, no license plate on the front. The man beside my window noticed it too because his expression changed immediately. You need to leave, he said. Not dramatic, not loud, just urgent. Then he stepped backward away from the car. I started reversing instantly. My headlights suddenly worked again the second I moved. But as I turned around near the end of the driveway, my beams swept across the front porch one last time. The food was gone. Every bag, every drink. And standing in the doorway was a little girl wearing what looked like an oversized winter coat. She wasn't moving, just staring at my car. I couldn't see her face clearly because the porch light still wasn't on, but I remember one detail perfectly. She was holding my bottled water upside down in one hand, watching it drip onto the porch. I sped out of there so fast I nearly clipped a mailbox. The black SUV passed me going the opposite direction maybe 30 seconds later. Tinted windows. No markings. And right before it disappeared behind me, I noticed something tied to the passenger side mirror. Strips of silver tape, same kind hanging from trees. I called support afterward from a gas station and explained the address problem. The representative sounded confused immediately. She said the order had been canceled almost an hour earlier. According to their system, nobody had accepted it after that. I argued with her because I literally still had the delivery photo on my phone. Except when I checked the app again, the photo was gone. So was the address. Entire order history disappeared like it never existed. The next day, I searched the property online. House 188 Ash Grove Lane had burned partially during a family dispute back in 2011. 3 people died there. 1 survived, a daughter, 12 years old. There was an archived article with a blurry daytime photo of the house before it was demolished. Same porch, same upstairs window, same long driveway. But according to county records, the property had been empty land for over 6 years. No rebuilt house, no utilities, nothing. I drove back there once during daylight about a month later because part of me needed proof I hadn't imagined it. Ash Grove Lane was real. The trees were real. But where the house should have been, there was only a burned concrete foundation surrounded by weeds. No driveway, no porch, no mailbox, nothing. And sitting near the edge of the foundation, half buried in dirt and dead leaves, was an unopened plastic bottle of water with my fingerprints still on it. Story 4. The elevator doors opened on the 17th floor even though nobody had pressed the button, and the first thing I saw was a pair of muddy work boots standing directly outside the gap. Not moving, just facing in. I hit the close door button immediately, over and over, but the door stayed open like something was blocking the sensor. Then the man wearing the boots leaned forward slightly and said, "You're early tonight." I'd never heard his voice before in my life, but somehow he said it like we'd had this conversation already. The weirdest part, the 17th floor of the building had been empty for almost 8 years. I know because I've been working security there for 3 months. My name's Tyler. I was 26 at the time, and I worked overnight security in a mostly abandoned office building in downtown St. Louis. The place used to belong to some insurance company before half the floors got shut down after a flood damaged parts of the upper levels. Only the first 6 floors were still leased. The rest stayed dark all night except for emergency lighting and maintenance access. Usually my shifts were boring. Walk the floors, check the cameras, log delivery trucks, drink terrible coffee around 2 a.m. and try not to fall asleep. But on my 3rd week there, one of the night janitors stopped me near the service hallway and told me something strange. "If the elevator opens at 307, he said, "don't get in." I laughed because I thought he was messing with me. The guy barely smiled. His name was Luis. Older guy, quiet, worked there almost 20 years. "Seriously," he said, "doesn't matter what floor it's on. Just let it close." I asked him why. He shrugged like he regretted bringing it up already. "Because somebody always rides it," he said. Then he walked away pushing his mop bucket, like the conversation never happened. After that, I started noticing little things. At exactly 3:07 a.m., one of the elevators would ding somewhere in the building. Sometimes nearby, sometimes distant, always once. I never paid attention before Luis mentioned it, but after that, it became impossible not to notice. One night, it opened on the lobby floor while I was doing paperwork. Empty inside. Another night, I heard it open upstairs while I was checking cameras. Still didn't think much of it. Old building, weird electrical issues. But then things started getting harder to explain. Around 2:50 every morning, camera feeds near the elevators would glitch for a few seconds. Static. Frozen frames. Sometimes timestamps skipping backward. Maintenance couldn't figure it out. One technician blamed old wiring. Another said maybe the recording software reset overnight. Still, every incident happened at almost the exact same time. And then there was the smell. That's what really got to me. Every time the elevator doors opened after 3 a.m., there'd be this strong, damp smell drifting out. Wet concrete, mud, like rainwater trapped underground. Nobody else seemed bothered by it except Luis. One night I found him standing near the service elevator staring at the floor display while it slowly counted upward by itself. No one inside, no calls placed. The numbers just climbed. 8, 11, 14, 17, then stopped. Luis looked genuinely pale. "Don't follow it," he muttered. I asked him what he meant, but he just walked off again. The night everything happened started normally enough. Storm outside, heavy rain hammering the windows. Half the lobby lights flickering because of weather issues. Around 1 a.m., a cleaning crew signed out early because part of the basement had minor flooding again. By 2:30, I was alone except for Luis, somewhere upstairs. I remember because he radioed me asking if I'd seen the second cart. I had no idea what he meant. "Never mind," he said quickly after a pause. "Forget it." Around 2:55, I noticed one of the camera feeds was showing the 17th floor hallway. That wasn't supposed to happen. Those cameras had been disconnected for years during renovations, yet there it was on monitor 6, grainy black and white footage of the hallway outside. Elevator B, empty at first. Then, after a burst of static, someone appeared standing near the wall. I actually leaned closer because I thought maybe it was Luis. Same maintenance uniform, same build, but the figure wasn't moving naturally. Just standing there, slightly hunched forward. The timestamp in the corner kept jumping between 3:06 and 3:08. Then the figure slowly turned toward the camera. The screen went black immediately after that. My radio crackled at the same moment. "Tyler," Luis said. His voice sounded strained. "Where are you?" "Security office," I answered. "Why?" Static hissed loudly for a second. Then he said, "Don't use elevator B." I stood up immediately. "What's going on?" No response. Just static again. Then the line cut completely dead. I tried calling him back twice. Nothing. That's when the elevator dinged. Loud. Close. Right outside the office hallway. I remember checking the clock automatically. 3:07 a.m. Exactly. I don't know why I walked toward it. Curiosity, maybe, or the fact I was tired of weird half-answers from everyone in that building. The hallway lights buzzed softly overhead while I approached elevator B. The doors were already open when I got there, empty inside. But the floor indicator didn't make sense. It showed 17. I stared at it for a second because the elevator was physically on the lobby floor in front of me. Yet somehow the display insisted it was 17 floors up. Then the lights inside flickered once, and the doors closed. The elevator started moving upward immediately. I should have left it alone. I know that now. But instead I used a nearby stairwell and started climbing. Fast. I kept telling myself maybe Luis was stuck upstairs or injured or something. By the time I reached 414, I was sweating hard and breathing like crazy. The building felt wrong up there. Too quiet. Most unused floors still had some distant hum from ventilation systems. But above 14 there was almost nothing, just silence and the sound of rain hitting distant windows. When I reached 16, I noticed muddy footprints on the stairs. Fresh ones, water still dripping slightly. They led upward toward 17. That's when I realized something worse. The footprints were bare, no shoes, human footprints. I almost turned around right there. Honestly, I should have, but then my radio burst to life suddenly. "Tyler," Luis whispered, very close static behind his voice. "If you're upstairs, don't let it see you stop moving." Then screaming, loud, sudden. The transmission cut instantly afterward. I ran the rest of the way to 17 without thinking. The door at the top opened into a dark hallway lit only by emergency exit signs. Most of the ceiling panels were missing. Plastic sheets covered abandoned office entrances. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness ahead, and elevator B was sitting open at the far end of the corridor. Empty. I called out for Luis twice. No answer. Then I heard movement behind one of the plastic renovation sheets nearby. Slow shuffling, like someone dragging wet clothing across carpet. I pulled out my flashlight immediately and stepped closer. "Luis." The movement stopped. Complete silence again. My flashlight beam shook a little because my hands wouldn't stop trembling. Then the plastic sheet twitched slightly from the other side, and a voice whispered, "You weren't supposed to come up here tonight." It sounded exactly like Luis, but wrong somehow. Too slow, too careful with the words. I backed away immediately. The flashlight beam drifted toward the floor beside the plastic sheet, and that's when I saw Luis's mop bucket tipped over nearby. Water everywhere. Fresh, but no sign of him. My radio crackled again. "Tyler," another voice said, this time from my belt. "Real." Panicked. "Get out of 17 right now." It was Luis again. Different location, different sound quality. I looked down at the radio in confusion, and the voice behind the plastic sheet laughed quietly. Same voice, same exact voice. The sheet suddenly bulged outward like somebody stepped closer from behind it. I ran. I don't even remember deciding to. I just sprinted toward the elevator while hearing wet footsteps following somewhere behind me. Not fast. Calm. Almost casual. The elevator doors were still open when I reached them. Floor display blinking strangely between 17 and 3. I slammed the lobby button repeatedly. Doors started closing, then stopped halfway. Something blocked them. A hand. Pale. Wet. Fingers bent awkwardly backward at the knuckles. I kicked the doors hard, and they finally shut completely. The elevator dropped fast afterward. Too fast. My stomach lurched like the cables had snapped. Lights flickering constantly. And then, the elevator stopped suddenly between floors. Everything went dark. For maybe 5 seconds, there was no sound at all. Then I heard breathing beside me. Deep, slow, not mine. I couldn't move. I couldn't even turn my head. Somewhere in the darkness, water dripped onto the elevator floor. Then the emergency lights flickered on. I was alone, but written in wet streaks across the elevator wall beside me were 4 words: "You stopped moving first." The elevator reached the lobby seconds later like nothing happened. Doors opened normally. Bright lights, empty hallway. I stumbled straight to the security office and locked myself inside until sunrise. Police searched the building after I reported Larice missing. They found him asleep in a maintenance room on the 6th floor. Confused, disoriented. According to him, he'd never gone upstairs at all. He also swore he never radioed me after 2:40 a.m. Management blamed stress, radios, exhaustion. But before I quit that job for good, I checked the security footage one last time. At exactly 3:07 a.m., elevator B opened on the lobby floor. I saw myself step inside, alone. The doors closed, but 10 seconds later, just before the elevator camera cut to static, another figure slowly leaned into frame behind me from the darkness outside the doors. Barefoot, wet, and wearing a security uniform with my name stitched across the chest. The knocking started before I locked the front doors, which didn't make sense because I'd already watched the last customer drive away 10 minutes earlier. 3 slow knocks. Glass rattling, just enough to make me look up from the register. I remember staring toward the entrance, expecting some drunk guy needing cigarettes, but there was nobody there. Just the reflection of the fluorescent light stretching across the empty parking lot, and my own tired face staring back at me through the glass. Then the payphone outside started ringing. That's what got me, honestly, because the payphone hadn't worked in over a year. I know that because people tried using it all the time after their cards got declined at the pumps. The cord had literally been cut by somebody last winter, but it was ringing, loud, sharp, over and over. I just stood there listening to it while the store speakers crackled with static above me. The weird part was, every time the phone rang, comp number 4 would activate by itself for half a second, just enough to click, like somebody squeezing the handle outside. I told myself it was electrical issues. Old station, storm rolling in, simple explanation. Still didn't stop me from feeling sick all of a sudden. I'm Tyler, 24, and back then I worked nights at a gas station off Route 81 in northern Pennsylvania. Graveyard shift, 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. Most nights were dead quiet except for truckers, exhausted travelers, and the occasional addict wandering in for energy drinks at 3 in the morning. It wasn't a bad job, boring mostly, which is why I noticed weird things fast. And that night felt wrong almost immediately. I grabbed a key ring and stepped outside to lock the pumps for closing. Cold wind hit me first, smelled like wet pavement and diesel fuel. The payphone had stopped ringing by then, but pump 4 was still blinking active. Click, click, quick, like somebody was lifting the handle repeatedly. I walked over slowly, flashlight shaking a little because I was tired and annoyed and honestly already creeped out. Nobody there, no car, no footprints in the puddles around the pump either. I reached down and reset the handle. The second I touched it, my radio buzzed on my belt. Static first, then a voice. "You closed early tonight." I nearly dropped the flashlight. It sounded like an older man, calm, low voice, like he was standing right beside me. "Hello?" I said into the radio immediately. No answer, just static. Then the payphone rang again behind me. I spun around so fast my back cracked. The ringing echoed across the empty lot while rain started drizzling harder. And this time, I noticed the receiver on the payphone wasn't hanging anymore. It was that was finally moving in the wind. I don't know why I walked toward it. I should have gone inside, locked the doors, called somebody. But there's this weird thing people do when they're scared, where your brain wants an explanation more than safety. I kept thinking there had to be someone messing with me. Some local teenagers maybe. I picked up the receiver. Dead silence for about 2 seconds. Then breathing. Slow, wet-sounding breathing. "You forgot the back freezer," the voice whispered. I hung up instantly. My stomach dropped hard, because there actually was a back freezer storage room behind the station. Customers never saw it. No reason anybody outside would know about it. I went back inside fast and locked the front door behind me. That's when I noticed something worse. The freezer hallway light was on. I always left it off unless I needed inventory. I stood behind the counter staring at the hallway while the old refrigeration units hummed in the back. The station suddenly felt massive, empty in a bad way, like somebody could be standing anywhere. Then the motion sensor alarm chimed. 1 beep, meaning movement in aisle 3. I looked immediately. Nobody. Just shelves of chips and canned soup under flickering fluorescent lights. Another beep, this time aisle 5, then another, aisle 2. Like something was moving around the store without appearing long enough for me to see it. I grabbed the metal flashlight from under the register and walked toward the aisles, trying to keep my breathing steady. "Store's closed," I called out. My voice sounded weak in there. The lights buzzed overhead. Somewhere in the back, something metallic hit the floor. Loud. I froze instantly. Then came footsteps. Not running, slow footsteps. One after another behind the freezer door. I remember every tiny detail weirdly clearly. The flickering soda cooler lights, rain hitting the windows, the smell of burnt coffee sitting too long on the warmer. I opened the freezer hallway door, slowly, and saw the storage freezer cracked open about 3 inches. Cold vapor spilling out across the floor. The metal shelves inside cast long shadows into the hallway, and somebody was humming quietly in there. I swear to God, I almost ran immediately, but instead, I said, "Hey." Coming stopped. Silence. Then the radio on my belt crackled again. "Don't open it." Same voice. "Call." Close. I backed away from the freezer instantly. Then the lights went out. Completely. Whole station black except for the beer cooler glow behind me. I heard movement immediately. Fast movement. Shoes scraping hard across tiles somewhere near the aisles. I ducked behind the counter and grabbed my phone, trying to use the flashlight app while dialing 911 at the same time. But before the call connected, the backup generator kicked on. Lights flickered back weak and yellow. The freezer hallway door was closed now, completely closed, and the humming had stopped. The police dispatcher answered while I kept staring toward the back. I told her someone might be inside the station. She asked if I could see them. I said no. Then the motion sensor chimed again. Aisle 1. Right beside the front door. I looked over slowly and saw a man standing there. I don't know where he came from. Thin guy, late 50s maybe. Gray jacket soaked from rain. He wasn't moving at all, just standing beside the gum rack, staring at me. "Sir," I said. He smiled slightly. Not friendly, just enough to make me uncomfortable. Then he looked toward the back hallway and said, "You shouldn't stay after 3. The dispatcher kept talking in my ear, asking if I was safe, but I barely heard her. The man walked toward the coffee station slowly. I noticed something strange immediately. His clothes were soaked from outside rain, but there were no wet footprints behind him. None. He stopped near the coffee machines and looked toward the security monitors mounted above the register. "Did he call you too?" he asked quietly. I didn't answer. My entire body felt cold suddenly. Then all 6 security screens went black at once. Every monitor. Gone. The man sighed like he'd seen it before. "Yeah," he muttered. "That's bad." Then the payphone outside started ringing again, loud enough to hear through the glass. The man stared toward it without moving. "Don't answer it this time," he said. Seriously. I asked him who he was. He ignored me. Instead, he walked slowly toward the front windows. That's when I noticed the pickup truck parked at pump 4. Black truck, headlights off. I swear it hadn't been there 30 seconds earlier. Rain dripped off the hood. Driver door hanging slightly open. The man beside the coffee station looked terrified suddenly. Not nervous, terrified. "You need to lock the office door," he whispered. "Right now." Then all the lights flickered again, just once. But during that split second of darkness, The truck was suddenly closer. Not possible. It was somehow parked directly outside the entrance now. Engine still off, driver door still hanging open. My chest tightened so hard I couldn't breathe right. The old man backed away from the windows immediately. "He knows you saw him," he said. "Who?" I snapped. Before he answered, the station phone rang behind the counter. I jumped. The caller ID just said unknown. The old man stared at it but didn't move. It kept ringing, over and over. Finally, I answered. Static filled the line for a second. Then my own voice said, "He's behind the cooler." I hung up immediately and turned toward the beer cooler aisle. Nothing there, but the cooler door at the very end was swinging slowly open and shut by itself. The old man started walking backward toward the employee exit. "Nope," he muttered. "Not tonight." I yelled at him not to leave me there alone, but he ignored me completely and disappeared through the side door into the rain. I rushed to lock it behind him. When I turned back around, the store was empty again. Completely empty. No truck outside anymore either. Just rain. I waited for police sitting behind the counter, gripping that flashlight so hard my hand cramped. They arrived about 12 minutes later. 2 deputies searched everything. Freezer, bathrooms, roof access. Nothing. No signs of forced entry. No truck caught on nearby traffic cameras either. They thought it was probably stress, maybe somebody messing around outside. But one deputy looked uncomfortable after checking the security system. Around 3:07 a.m., every camera in the store had cut to static for exactly 4 minutes. During those 4 minutes, one frame appeared on screen before the footage resumed. Just one frame. It showed me standing behind the register alone, completely still, looking directly into the camera. Except, something was standing beside me, tall, blurry, almost out of frame, and it looked like it was leaning close to my ear. The deputy asked if someone had been near me then. I said no. He didn't answer after that, just printed the frame quietly and folded it into his pocket. I quit 2 days later. The station got demolished last fall after a fire in the storage room. Nobody was hurt. At least that's what the article said. But sometimes, usually late at night, I still think about that phone call. My own voice warning me somebody was behind the cooler. Because here's the thing I never told the police. When I turned toward the cooler after the call, for just a second, I saw someone duck behind the shelves. Same height as me, same jacket, same face.